What's the hubbub? Variety reviewer Owen Gleiberman has faced some backlash for the review of Supergirl, and now anti-woke communities are mad about a critic getting critiqued. Irony. You can't make this up. I don't have an issue with people who simply disliked a movie they saw. The issue I have with the review is, if you want to be critical of story elements, that is fine. But if you rely on the rage bait of calling her one of the most generic insults passed around by saying star Milly Alcock is the feral kid from Mad Max, as Variety did, you are making a choice to lay down your objectivity in favor of enticing the hate mob to latch on to your review. It's pretty much the definition of a grift to profit from. Clicks, clicks, clicks. On a small scale, we see that from SnyderBro, which are Zack Snyder-centric channels that want the DCU to fail, and restoration of the SnyderVerse, like Aaron Fischer, who I recently called out for purposely spoiling Supergirl's plot early after seeing the Amazon Early Access fan screening. When he's against it, and that's meant for fans anyway, it's a low, trashy move. He literally wanted to ruin the ending while using clickbait for his video. So when I insult Snyder Bros, I'm not insulting Snyder fans. Hell, I am a Snyder fan to a degree. I just moved on to support the next iteration in the DCU from James Gunn to see what his verse can do.
SnyderVerse fans are angry, and you guys are kind of getting a little out of control, and I don't know why you hate James Gunn so much. What's crazy to me, specifically because Supergirl is now a higher audience score than Man of Steel, people are coming out of the woodwork and hating on the film even more. Sidebar, James Gunn didn't make Supergirl, Craig Gillespie did, and you guys don't even seem to know that. I had someone on my comment section say, yeah, well, if Supergirl's so great, then why did Man of Steel make so much more money? Well, first off, they're genius. Man of Steel came out 13 years ago, and it was at the boom period of superhero films a year after The Dark Knight Rises and the first Avengers movie, before superhero fatigue was ever even a thing or mentioned. And on top of that, it was pre-COVID, before direct-to-streaming and same-day streaming became a thing, which forever changed the way that box offices actually make money, and they've never recovered fully since. You hate James Gunn, but why? Zack Snyder has publicly supported everything that James Gunn is doing, and they also have an amicable relationship, and even met up to discuss what James Gunn would be doing with the DCU before he fully started it, and Zack Snyder said he was all for James Gunn's ideas. You also act as if James Gunn took Zack Snyder's job, which he didn't. Zack Snyder left in 2017 after his daughter passed away, unfortunately, and he never returned until the fans clamored for the Snyder cut of the Justice League movie, which Toby Emmerich basically allowed Zack to make the movie. The two names you need to know about all of this is Walter Hamada and Toby Emmerich, the two guys in charge at Warner Brothers and DC Films when Snyder was still involved with the actual company. When it comes down to it, they were never happy with his direction of the SnyderVerse, as people like to call it, even though he's only responsible for 3.5 films in the DCEU, Man of Steel, BVS, half of Justice League, and the Snyder Cut. The Snyder Cut, by the way, being the only film he made for the DCEU to get mostly positive reviews, sitting at 6.7 out of 10 at 71% positive. When it came down to it, they never liked the dark direction he was in. They tried to course correct it several times and butted heads with him, and then even had to run studio interference to get him to listen, which he wouldn't. And when they decided to reboot the DCEU, it wasn't with Zack in mind, it was with James Gunn. His critically acclaimed The Suicide Squad movie, the early draft of his Superman script, and because of how successful Guardians 3 was. That's what got him hired. What I find funny is that so many of you think that just because Supergirl isn't doing well means the DCU is dead, and that's idiotic. Incredible Hulk was the second movie of the MCU, and it was terribly received and a box office bomb, and look where the MCU is today. So I would probably hold your breath. Some of you Snyder fans are also fake fans. I'm going to put right here what a guy actually commented on my review of Supergirl on Facebook, and you can read what he said about the woke Superman crest, and you can see my response. Point is, if you're gonna bitch and moan, know what the fuck you're talking about.
The characters of DC are bigger than any director or actor, and always will be. The Snyder Bros can't accept that truth as its reality. As for Owen of Variety, he threw out a dog whistle to get the haters swirling and circulate an article from controversially adding insults to a movie review. That's trashy and low too. She is someone's daughter.
Zack Snyder might be coming back to finish his... Yes! He will be coming back to finish his Justice League movies once Paramount buys WBD. Yes.
Hey, Mr. Phenom. Would you speak out if someone compared your daughter to men and called her ugly and trans? Think harder, my guy. Get out of the Snyder Bro channel business and find some nuance. As for Variety, it's not a good look to stand behind that hatred, as they've had a reputation as a respected trade source. This will turn off people that expect middle ground and balanced reporting from them. Milly faced harassment and cyberbullying from comparisons to Feral Boy to male star Will Poulter, and was even called trans remarks by the anti-woke grifters. Then they had the nerve to say she was Zegler all over again, referencing the Snow White controversy and debacle, where Rachel Zegler called the iconic story weird and the prince a stalker. Milly, in contrast, simply took more insults on looks than about any star in recent history. Headlining a new movie, she pointed out it was ironic for self-labeled Christians who were family men to harass her looks, as that's not very Christian of them, is it? The anti-woke alt-right clowns decided to say she insulted all Christian males. Bullshit. Obviously that wasn't her intent, but they don't care about truth and context. They care about ideological exposure to grow their hate community, which, let's be logical and admit, the critical drinker and Nerdrotic are constantly, as adult men in their 50s or so, shelling out insults like calling a young woman all the cock in a childish, misogynistic play on words of her last name. I'm sure she already endured low IQ insults from her teenage years. Of course, while not right, at least the bulk of that time was during an immature age you'd expect it from. Grown-ass men resorting to these tactics is gross. Calling her super drunk hoe, which circulated as well when she wasn't even promiscuous in the movie, was also an unfair shot that aimed to suppress families from going. Her being drunk was actually not that big a part of the movie even. It was used to explain some of the damage from seeing Krypton's destruction and the loss of her loved ones. There's nothing funny about the insults or even original. Hey, why did the chicken cross the road, folks, to get to the other side and join its family of anti-woke Snyder Bros? Comedy. To top it off, we get called white knights for calling out misogyny, and they can't take being wrong. Post-Supergirl flopping, I'd say Milly still has to continue enduring the harassment, which is truly sad on a human level. She literally got a part out of her talent, having been noticed from and getting praise off House of Dragon series. Now she's suddenly thrust into a strange cope world of vile fanboy misogyny, and yes, it is sick, and it won't end anytime soon. I give her credit for having strength in facing this onslaught of pathetic behavior. I guarantee you the weak trolls online wouldn't be able to endure if it were them targeted. Now let's examine some factors of the recent low turnout for the new Supergirl movie. Stay tuned through the full video as I'll cover where the DCU goes from here. Was Supergirl actually bad? Is it superhero fatigue? Are there market differences in the superhero boom era of the past compared to today? How about the anti-woke agenda that wanted to rile up the gullible? I'll dive in to give a definitive take and answers to all of this. A commentator recently said this: I know some Snyder Bro channels can only handle reading the latest anti-DCU and anti-James Gunn hit piece, which serves as their lazy content, but we will take the time to actually examine and think here on the Hubbub. By the way, take a moment to subscribe, please. Tap the notification bell to be in the loop of when a new video drops. I'll say from the start here that Supergirl is just not a bad movie. This isn't Battlefield Earth. Do you want to argue some found it just okay? Fine. Throw it in the trash bad? No way. That's just dishonest if you're talking on average word of mouth. As just a movie, I said an 8 out of 10, which is very good. As for the job it does in introducing Milly Alcock as Kara and how it connects towards the DCU, I could even see an argument for a 9 out of 10 in the scope of the verse build-out. The scenes with Superman were not filler throwaway moments. They did some fantastic world building. If you consider the review bombing with the anti-woke and Snyder Bros crowd, which are sometimes one and the same, we see an audience to critics score of over 20% higher from the audience. If you look at Spielberg's latest movie Disclosure Day, you see the critics at about 10% higher than the audience score. What's that suggest? They were cohesively all behind his movie more than the audience. As for the superhero fatigue, I don't agree it's just from bad movie fatigue, as James Gunn suggested. That's idealistic to say, but I'll have to disagree with that notion. Even if it is well-intentioned, why? It's really affecting non-tentpole characters, if we're being honest. Some of which are solid movies too. Spider-Man would be a tentpole that survives shifts in the industry, as are the Avengers or Deadpool movies. The fatigue is basically regarding how at one point any superhero movie would hit. Now it's different. Before we saw Doctor Strange movies do over 1.6 billion and Black Panther movies of over 2.2 billion, let's consider they were relatively far away from A-list Marvel superheroes, but still did incredibly well. Those didn't come out as tentpole characters. We shift into 2025 and saw Thunderbolts, Captain America, Brave New World, and a Fantastic Four all struggle.
What made me think I could follow that?
There was a time when they'd have been nearing 1 billion during the superhero boom. These, in my opinion, were not bad movies either. Superman, funny enough for the DC haters, was the only superhero movie to even hit the 600 million range last year. I'm not sure I would put it as a better movie over all of these. I liked it, but rated Fantastic Four higher. Check my Superman review video, it's on record. How does this connect with the DCU versus DCEU SnyderVerse debate that we do in this Hubbub community? One of the biggest differences between the era of the SnyderVerse and the environment James Gunn is working in is that audience behavior has fundamentally changed. When the SnyderVerse began with Man of Steel, superhero movies were still in a period of rapid expansion. The success of the Marvel Cinematic Universe had created the expectation that almost every major comic book film was a theatrical event. Audiences were generally willing to give new entries a chance simply because they belonged to the superhero genre. Even films that divided critics could open to strong box office numbers because interest in the genre itself was exceptionally high. It helped Man of Steel to some degree, but it underperformed, considering an Iron Man sequel in 2013 did $1.2 billion. The answer? They brought Batman in immediately to catch up with Marvel. The problem? It was a bad movie. Even the Ultimate Director's Cut edition couldn't save it. When the flaws involve a poor version of Lex Luthor acting campy and a rushed death of Superman's story, people just didn't like it, from both audience and critics. Here, the Zack Snyder only fans who hate on anything from the new verse are talking about Supergirl, which looks to be a bomb, dropping 60% in the second week. Folks, the Batman vs. Superman movie dropped 70% its second week. It was a putrid movie. Marvel kept building and growing though, and the DCEU could still make more money off of that genre audience from the backs of Marvel filmmakers. Today, that automatic enthusiasm is much weaker. After more than a decade of interconnected films and streaming series from multiple studios, many viewers have become far more selective. Instead of seeing every superhero release, audiences often wait for reviews, recommendations, or evidence that a film offers something distinctive. This is why people often describe superhero fatigue not as a rejection of superheroes altogether, but as a decline in enthusiasm for average or unfamiliar superhero projects. The distinction between marquee characters and secondary characters has therefore become much more significant. Characters such as Spider-Man, the Avengers, or Deadpool have enough cultural recognition that their films can still feel like major events even in a more crowded market. That doesn't guarantee success quality, and marketing still matter, but those brands begin with a much larger base of public interest. Lesser-known heroes no longer receive the same benefit of the doubt that many comic book movies enjoyed during the 2008 through 2018 decade period of the genre. That makes launching a new shared universe more challenging for James Gunn than it was for Zack Snyder. Snyder entered the market while audience demand for superhero stories was still growing. Gunn is introducing a new continuity at a time when viewers are asking why this particular universe deserves their attention. Every new installment has to justify itself on its own merits rather than relying on excitement for the genre as a whole. Regarding Supergirl, discussion online has included criticism from some commentators and social media accounts that characterize female-led action films as examples of girl boss or woke storytelling before release. That kind of discourse has become common for a variety of franchises and often begins long before audiences have actually seen the movie. However, it is important to distinguish between pre-release online narratives and broader audience reception. If a film goes on to receive a strong audience score after release, that can suggest many moviegoers who actually watched it responded more positively than the early online debate might have implied. A higher audience rating would indicate that a substantial portion of viewers judged the film primarily on its entertainment value, performances, action, or story, rather than concluding it was driven by political messaging. At the same time, audience scores are only one measure of reception and should be interpreted alongside critic reviews, box office performance, and other indicators rather than as definitive proof of why people liked or disliked a film. More broadly, recent superhero releases have shown that online debates about wokeness do not always predict how general audiences will respond. Some films become lightning rods in online culture war discussions, yet still earn positive reactions from many viewers, while others receive little political criticism but struggle because audiences simply don't find them compelling. In today's environment, quality, word of mouth, and the appeal of the characters often have a greater impact on long-term success than the intensity of pre-release social media controversy. I keep seeing these odd Snyder bro arguments trying to compare Supergirl from today's market to Wonder Woman in 2017. The logic just isn't there. Wonder Woman entered her first modern solo film with several major advantages. She was already one of DC's 3 flagship heroes alongside Batman and Superman, and the superhero movie genre was still in a period of sustained growth. There was also a widespread sense that it was overdue for such an iconic character to receive a major theatrical film. Marvel had yet to get a reputation of girl boss films forced down your collective fanboy throats either. Once the movie earned strong reviews and positive word of mouth, those factors reinforced each other and helped it become both a critical and commercial success. Supergirl, by contrast, is a recognizable character but has historically occupied a lower tier of mainstream popularity. She is often associated with Superman rather than viewed as one of DC's defining standalone icons. Any Supergirl film therefore has to work harder to establish why audiences should see this story, especially in a market where viewers are no longer inclined to watch every superhero release. The broader industry context also matters. In 2017, superhero movies still benefited from a level of goodwill that meant many audiences would buy tickets simply because a film was part of the genre. Today, that automatic interest has declined. Viewers are generally more selective, and social media discussion around major releases has become more polarized. Female-led blockbusters in particular are sometimes the subject of pre-release debates from some online commentators who frame them in terms of broader cultural or political issues. That kind of discourse was less prominent back then than it is today.
Saying, you just hate women. You know?
Yeah.
I'd watch Catwoman before I watched Supergirl.
That was pretty funny. Damn right, yeah. But yeah, there is this article here that I saw that I had to bring up to you guys. Let's see if I can share it here because apparently we are all sexist and misogynist just for not liking this movie. There's no valid criticism to be had with it. It's just
listen,
you hate women.
2 things can be true. Okay, we can like the movie based on what it's like and then be sexist and misogynist.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh, yeah.
For those reasons, it's reasonable to argue that Wonder Woman would likely have a more challenging path if it were launching for the first time today. It would probably face a more skeptical theatrical audience, greater competition for attention, and more pre-release online scrutiny than it did. The difference is that it would likely have to overcome more obstacles to reach the same outcome, rather than benefiting from the combination of favorable market conditions and genre momentum that existed in those days. So should the DCU make the safer play and try to bank on Batman next? From a franchise-building perspective, there is a reasonable argument for prioritizing more Batman films before a new Wonder Woman movie, but it's a strategic choice rather than an obvious necessity. Batman is arguably DC's most reliable theatrical property. Across multiple generations, audiences have consistently turned out for Batman films regardless of continuity changes. In today's market, where audiences are more selective about superhero movies, Batman is one of the few characters who can still generate event-level interest almost on name recognition alone. Successful Batman films can also strengthen the overall DC brand and create momentum for the wider universe. Batman is a tentpole character. Wonder Woman remains one of DC's premier heroes, but a rebooted version would face some additional challenges. A new actress would inevitably be compared with Gal Gadot, who may not be a great actress, but Patty Jenkins set her up for success on the first movie at least. 1984, of course, was a torturous movie to sit through in the follow-up movie. A new Wonder Woman film would be launching in a market that is more competitive than it was in 2017 and on the genre decline at box office. Well, actually, post-COVID general viewing compared to pre-COVID is down 40%. The streaming pivot post-COVID unlocked a damaging weapon to movie theaters. It would need a compelling creative vision and strong word of mouth to distinguish itself. That doesn't mean it couldn't succeed. It means it would likely have far less margin for error.
No!
On the other hand, delaying Wonder Woman for too long has its own risks. DC's three cornerstone heroes have traditionally been Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. The Trinity. If the new DC universe spends years focusing primarily on Batman and Superman, the franchise could feel incomplete. Introducing Wonder Woman relatively early helps establish the universe as balanced and gives audiences confidence that the major pillars of DC are all part of the long-term plan. A middle ground strategy could make sense. Establish Superman, continue building Batman through one or more successful films, and then launch Wonder Woman once the new DC universe has built audience trust. By that point, positive momentum for the shared universe could help a Wonder Woman film in much the same way that a strong franchise benefits other connected releases. Ultimately, the more important factor than release order is execution. Today's audience has shown it will still support superhero films when they feel like genuine events or are exceptionally well received. A great Wonder Woman movie released after the DC universe has earned audience confidence could outperform a mediocre Batman movie despite Batman's greater brand strength. Likewise, a strong Batman run can provide a solid commercial foundation that makes it easier to introduce other heroes. The decision is less about one character replacing the other and more about sequencing the franchise to maximize audience investment. With that, it's today's Hubbub. No SnyderVerse, no problem. The Gunn DCU is locked and loaded. Meanwhile, the SnyderVerse was already fired. Ha ha ha, burn. Please subscribe to the Hubbub for DCU versus DCEU debate and the latest DC news and updates. Thank you for watching Hubbub Homies.
Hey, the code to close the rift is in here. I can help.
I don't need your help. I'm goddamn Mr. Terrific.
You piece of shit alien!
That is where you've always been wrong about me, Lex. I'm as human as anyone. I love, I get scared. I wake up every morning and despite not knowing what to do, I put one foot in front of the other and I try to make the best choices I can. I screw up all the time. But that is being human. And that's my greatest strength. And someday, I hope, for the sake of the world, you understand that it's yours too.
Oh, that's beautiful.